Welcome back. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on the time you're watching us. Piers Morgan just destroyed Israeli minister by telling her this.
Then you should be thanking us, like the rest of the world, for freeing the Gazans from the Hamas ruling, which is a Nazi terror of our days.
I started this interview by saying Hamas should not obviously be in charge anymore, but I also think the IDF should stop what they're doing in Gaza now because too many innocent people are being killed. And I'm afraid I don't believe what the IDF or the Israeli government is now saying about what's happening in Gaza because you won't let the media in to verify it. And in my experience, there's a long history of being a journalist. When people stop journalists going into an area like Gaza during a war, it's because they don't want people to see what they're doing there. They've got something to hide. Anyway, I've got to leave it there.
That's correct.
Mai Golan, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
You can tell that there's one problem with people who are pro-Israel. They lack empathy when it comes to describing Palestinians or generally Gentiles. I have seen this many times, and I don't understand what the criteria of this government, because it's very warning.
Doctor who risked his own life several times now to go and work in hospitals in Gaza as the bombs are dropping. So I won't have you attacking him.
Yeah, I wish he would have told you that Israel has suggested more than 100 incubators to the Shifa hospitals and to the authorities of Hamas, and they refused it. I wish he would have told you that many hospitals, Mr. Morgan, 1 second. I wish he would have told you that many hospitals underground have facilities of terror. I wish he would have told you that schools and places of humanitarian aid, which, by the way, the country that have massacred in her holiday, has been given over 70,000 aid trucks. Do you hear that?
Yeah,
70,000 aid trucks. He's talking about a hospital.
Let me respond.
What country does that? A country that has a woman being chopped off into pieces and babies being chopped off into pieces, men beheaded, elderly people are being kidnapped. Do you know what we had to watch?
Yes,
He's talking about what the Gazans are being through, but what about the Jewish nation that have buses been blowing up for the last 70 years?
Yes, okay, let me respond. As I said to you, for a long time in this war, I defended Israel's right to defend itself. But that right to self-defense has now been consumed by senior members of your government, your colleagues, Smodrich, Ben-Gvir and others, extreme right-wing members of that government who are now talking in a very brazen and very open way about what they really want to happen, which is, in their words, cleansing Gaza of all Palestinians. That is ethnic cleansing. That is a war crime. So you may not say that, or maybe you will, but your colleagues are saying that, and they want to cleanse Gaza, as they put it, of all Palestinians. That is not self-defense. That is ethnic cleansing. So you can play the moral argument against me about October the 7th, but it's pointless.
I don't need to play the moral argument.
Well, let me explain. Let me explain. I have said repeatedly, if I may finish my sentence, I have for 20 months.
I hear you in delay. Don't get angry, Mr. Morgan. I hear you on delay.
Okay.
But don't get angry. I hear you on delay.
You're the one getting angry. I'm trying to get a word in.
I'm not.
Let me finish my sentence, if I may. For 20 months, as anyone who's watched my show will tell you, and I would suspect you haven't watched it much or you wouldn't be questioning what I feel about October the 7th. To me, it was one of the most heinous terror attacks of modern times, an absolutely despicable assault on predominantly innocent women, children, grandmothers, grandfathers, in the most repulsive, horrific, atrocious manner. And Hamas, to me, are a disgusting terrorist organization who lost any right to govern for another second in Gaza the moment they perpetrated that act of pure evil. However, and it's an important however, what the Israeli government has been doing in the last few months in Gaza has now, to even its closest allies, become something they cannot defend. And you know this. When you do a 3-month blockade of food, you all boast about how much aid you're giving them. You blocked most aid and food for 3 months to an already starving, impoverished people
Mr. Morgan, you're
who
saying
have
a lot
been
of
rained
stuff,
with
and I need to
bombs
remember
now
to
for
comment
20
about all
months.
of them.
That is actually not a right
That's a
thing
lie.
to do.
That's
right?
a complete lie.
It's not a lie.
It's a lie.
It's not a lie. The blockade is not a lie.
And if you let me comment, you say so much accusations. You have to let me comment about some of them.
So there was no
First of all,
blockade.
let's start with the Smotrich. Okay, wait. You said a lot of things. I want to comment about all of them. If you let me, I would be more than happy.
Okay.
First of all, let's start about Smotrich and Ben Gvir, what you said. Now, Mr. Morgan, I don't need to explain to you, who I have been watching his show and for many, and been watching your professional career for many years, by the way, and do have evaluation for everything that you say and for what you believe in, which I really think you are being misled. That is why I came here on this show, not because I think anything else. Now, I would be really happy if you let me finish some of the points I want to tell you. First of all, regarding Smotrich and Ben Gvir, you have to know with all of your profession that there is two kinds of politicians. One, like you interviewed, for instance, Naftali Bennett, an interview I did watch, who by accident forgot to mention that he launched a party just a month ago, and forgot to tell you that he signed so many declarations before he became a prime minister and didn't held up to any of them, and he forgot to tell you a lot of things, but in actual fact deceived his own people. And just like the rest of them that you interviewed, Olmert and Barak and all those prime ministers, the one thing in common that they all have is the fact that the public doesn't vote for them anymore, so they're very bitter. Now, regarding Smotrich and Ben Gvir, you have to remember, when you're saying Smotrich and Ben Gvir, you're talking about, and I don't know what they said, but I'm referring to what you said. I'm, trusting your words. You're talking obviously about the Trump's plan. Now, this is not Smotrich or Ben Gvir's plan.
No, I'm not talking about Trump's plan.
Okay, so I don't know. I don't know
about
anything
what came out of their mouths.
They want to kill
they want to
Palestinians
cleanse,
in Gaza?
their words, cleanse Gaza of all the Palestinians.
So when you say cleanse, I can tell you that they refer to the Trump's plan. And when we're talking about Trump's plan, I have to tell you that, first of all, Donald J. Trump, which is what I consider the best thing that God could have given us for a new middle age, his collaboration with Prime Minister Netanyahu is really what we could all wish for in order to make a new Middle East. But I can tell you that we are not taking anything off the table in order to just protect our civilians and our children of Israel. And if we have to look at Trump's plan, which for me, as I think, is thinking outside of the box, and if we have to consider other things, like we have examined over the decades, we will. But I don't see it as ethnic cleansing, let alone...
So would you like, let me ask you then, let me ask you, would you like to cleanse Gaza of all the Palestinians?
Listen, I don't use the terminology of you and your colleagues. That is not my terminology.
Well, that's the terminology of your colleague.
Is not my terminology, just like the settlements that you mentioned with
it's the terminology, to be clear, it's the terminology of your own cabinet colleague. It's Smodrich, your finance minister. It's your colleague, not mine or my colleagues. It's the language used by your finance minister only 2 weeks ago.
I can tell you that for the first time ever, we have a very right-wing government, as you can see. Our views are very transparent, and everything that is held in the cabinet and not in the cabinet, but in the government is being shared outside. No one is hiding anything. Now, Smotrich and Ben Gvir are not a part of my party, but they are a part of this government. And I'm telling you, although I'm not representing them, that they are talking about the Trump's plan, and we are considering it just like we consider any other plan in order to protect our civilians. Now, I want to say another thing about that. Listen, I don't know, I heard your interviews, and I know you talk about Smotrich and his things that he said, but I want to say something about Bezalel Smotrich, although I have nothing to do with his party. Yes, he's a part of my government, not from my party. I don't know that, but Smotrich went to more funerals this year than you went in your entire life, okay? His entire family.
How do you know that?
Wait 1 second. Wait 1 second.
You've no idea how many funerals I've been to.
And
how do you
his
know
entire
that?
friends, because I tell you, he went to hundreds and hundreds of funerals from his own community. His heart was broken. We are wounded. Our ministers are wounded from the sights we saw. I wanted to tell you before, and you stopped me. As the Minister for Social Equality and the Advancement of Women, what I saw that women have endured, your eyes and your mind could never comprehend. The fact is that we have children in Gaza today that the interview before was talking about that are being raised on Mein Kampf. They are being raised of killing Jews from the second they are born. This is what they say. And you know what? If you don't believe me, you can talk with the hostages that came back from captivity. And
what would you do with them? What would you do with them? The Palestinians.
With who?
The Palestinians. What would you do with them?
Well, first of all, this is not an issue now with the Palestinians. This is not an issue with the terror regime of Hamas. In my idea,
I'm asking you what you would do with the Palestinian population. What would you do with it?
I don't know. Would you like to accept them, or we eliminate the terror of Hamas? Would England accept them?
Well, let me read you.
Maybe another Arab
country? Remind you of some of the things that you've said yourself. Yeah. All right, during an October 24 rally in support of Jewish settlements in Gaza, you said there should be another Nakba, referring to the 1948 Palestinian displacement of hundreds of thousands of people. You also said, I am personally proud of the ruins of Gaza, and that every baby, even 80 years from now, will tell their grandchildren what the Jews did. That was in February, you said this. You want explicit violence against Hamas and Palestinians. In February 2024...
Against Hamas, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. We want to eliminate every terrorist of Hamas. Let me tell you that.
Hang on, I haven't finished yet. I haven't finished. Sorry, I haven't finished.
When we say, Mr. Morgan...
And as much as we won't say that Palestinians should not have a right, or should have a right to demonstrate or to be against an occupying power, we need to understand that many times the occupying power will always dehumanize the people they are occupying. And we have seen this constant with all government officers from Israel government. It's very frustrating, and I don't understand whether they understand this is a PR catastrophe, because the moment you try to dehumanize the people who people see that you are occupying them, and everyone can see that whatever you are doing in Gaza is too much, it becomes a problem. And when you compare the doctor who was interviewed first, Palestinian doctor who was interviewed first before this by Piers Morgan, you can tell that there's a very big contrast in terms of understanding the reality on the ground and having empathy or being realistic as much as possible. But what happens? Anytime many Israeli government are asked tough questions regarding what is happening in Gaza, they always blame Hamas. Yes, always. I don't know what happens, but they need to understand that whatever they are doing, their PR game is very down, and generally it will affect the image of Israel government for many years to come. Because people right now are living in an information age, they can tell what is happening, and they can tell who is wrong, or whatever, or whichever the government they belong, and they can tell whether the government opposes this. We know what is the truth, and they can start with it. And we have seen this. What do you think in the comment section? Let's meet in the next video. I'm your host, James.